When you hear the game Osu, you think of that one silly rhythm game where you click circles to the beat with your tablet or mouse and watch members of the community doing the most unhinged activities. However, this is only the surface of what many have seen. Most are unfamiliar with the existing game modes that are within Osu, such as Mania, Taiko, and Catch. Before I dive into this, I do want to mention that Osu Standard is undoubtedly the most popular game mode and is still thriving as of today. So I won't mention other game modes as much compared to Mania. I will be splitting how I will be defining the game mode as dead into certain aspects of the community. That being the activity of the player base, mappers, breaking beat maps, and content creators. I'll also be using Osu Standard and other popular rhythm games similar to Osu Mania to gauge the activity as a comparison. Osu Mania is a VSRG. In case you don't know what that means, it's a vertical scrolling rhythm game. The Mania game mode was implemented into the client as one of the 4 game modes on October 8th, 2012, and was inspired by games such as Beat Mania and Dance Dance Revolution. The gameplay is vastly different compared to Osu Standard, where instead of clicking circles, you smash your keyboard. Osu Mania's most popular key mode, or key count, is 4 keys, and behind that is 7 keys. Starting with 4 key, there are a handful of very successful players, such as Saragi, Muka, and Evadi, all of whom are the number 1 or former number 1 player in 4 key. If you ask the average Mania player who's the best player, they'll either point their fingers to Saragi or Kalkai, who are currently ranked as number 1 in 4 key and 7 key respectively. These players are the ones who are pushing the skill ceiling and are setting incomprehensible scores to many, especially Saragi, who is actively achieving scores that are shocking the entire Mania community. So then if the top players are stretching the limits of what was thought to be possible, therefore leading to competition and motivation within the community, doesn't that mean it is thriving? Well, it isn't that simple. Let's compare Mania to other well-known VSRGs. Starting off with Quaver, which is available for free in Steam, had a very low average player count of 215 users in May of 2025. Unfortunately, it's difficult to even get a precise estimation of how many monthly visits Osu receives or player counts, let alone the Mania game mode, since there are hardly any reliable sources to get the statistic from. However, with the power of eyeballing and thanks to a few sources, I have come to a number, but do know that you should take it with a grain of salt. According to a post on the Osu game subreddit, they have calculated a hopefully precise number of players in each game mode as of May 2025. The most popular being Standard, no shock there, second being in Mania. Doing the math, we can see that there are 188% more players in Standard compared to Mania. Crazy, right? Comparing the numbers from Quaver and Mania in May of 2025, it's definitely safe to say that the number is far, far higher than Quaver compared to Mania, and even compared to other VSRGs. Chances are Mania has a higher player count compared to any VSRG game you can think of combined, besides Friday Night Funkin'. So then, if the numbers don't say the game is dead, what does? Let's start off with the big picture in the Mania scene. Competition in Mania has been higher than ever thanks to the huge increase in beat maps with high star ratings. Just from 2025 alone, there have been 14 beat maps with a star rating above 6.5 that have made it to the ranked section every month on average. That means about every 2 or 3 days, you can expect a map that can give a 4-digit player a decent challenge and potential PP to rank up. Since the star rating is inconsistent in the Mania game mode, and maps may be farmier than others, not all maps above the 6.5 star rating threshold can give a generous amount of PP. Let's say around 20% of maps above the 6.5 star range is farm and can allow players that are good enough to earn a decent amount of PP. This means that there are at least 2 or 3 maps every month that are capable of rewarding good amounts of PP for the average 4-digit. This is also not including potential maps that can be farmed with double time and halftime mods, so this is a pretty big lowball. This means that more maps that can reward PP incentivizes higher activity for people with higher ranks, especially if they want to keep up. Otherwise, they would lose their ranking rapidly due to the active map ranking. If we involve 5 digits, they have essentially several dozen maps they can rank up from if we throw in the halftime mod as they push to become better. However, it's also important to mention that not all players focus on ranking, as there's also a good amount of casual players that play the game simply because they find it fun, which is cool. Not only does the ever-growing amount of higher star-rated maps become ranked allow people to push for more PP, it also becomes a motivator to make those who want to achieve high numbers better. Now that we got the big picture of the Mania scene, let's dive in deeper and take a closer look at the competition in the top 1000 of Mania. This is also where I'll start talking about the large difference between the 4-key and 7-key modes, since most of the Mania players in the top 500 are 7-key mains. It becomes increasingly difficult to climb the top territory if you're a 4-key main, simply because you have to compete against 7-key players who have more farming potential due to the greater amount of higher star rating maps. 4K mains make up the majority of the Mania community. This can be easily shown if we take a look at the most played maps in Mania. There are hardly any 7-key maps that are in the millions, and if there are any, their play counts are inflated because there are also 4-key difficulties. Historically, 4-key has been and always will be the more popular key mode, and that's because of its simplicity compared to the sheer complexity of 7-key. And because of this, 4-key has more players, which means more competition. 4-key has been highly competitive, and there have been notable players, as I mentioned previously, who break the limits. The same can be said for 7-key, although it doesn't happen as often. This is also the reason why 4 digits and 5 digits are mostly made up of 4-key players just from sheer numbers. On top of that, 4-key mappers push for more innovation when put next to 7-key mappers. As of the making of this video, a new 10-star 4-key map just got ranked, which is absolutely insane. Trust me. The mappers create maps for the players, which means the community keeps itself active as long as mappers push for more innovations, especially maps with higher star ratings. However, it isn't entirely the same for 7-key mappers. Not only is 7-key harder to play, it's also harder to create 7-key maps with high quality. I experienced this myself since I'm both a 4-key and 7-key player and mapper. It's the reason why most endgame maps in 7-key are generally made by the same people such as Critical Star, Tyrex, and Blocko, and the occasional others. Since there's less 7-key mappers, there's less people to learn from, which intimidates potential 7-key mappers and hinders their progress towards better mapping. There's 2 countries I would like to talk about that offer a unique contrast of 4K and 7-key players. South Korea is infamous for their talented players that primarily play 7-key. As a matter of fact, out of the top 50 players who all play 7K, 19 of them are South Koreans. And a decent number of top 4K players are also South Korean. As for the United States, they aren't as predominant compared to South Korea, even though they are way outnumbered. If we look into the 4K side of the United States, there's some talented players and there's high activity amongst the top 50, which is pretty cool. Out of the top 10 players in the United States, most of them are 7K players, which is normal given the history of the US's top players. However, what makes it different now is that 8 out of the 10 are inactive or barely active, one of whom is a 4K main, and that makes me the literal only person who's active in the top 10 who mains 7K. Yeah, it's pretty lonely up here. So if you're in the United States and if you are still watching, just know I strongly encourage you to get into 7K. It may be intimidating, but trust me, it's very cool. If you take up on this offer, just know I'll watch you from your lows up to your highs. I do want to note that the amount of 7K players in the US is really lackluster, especially given the fact there are so many players in the United States, which really says something about the US. My guess is that the US VSRG culture is heavily oriented towards 4K compared to other countries like Japan and South Korea, since the upbringings for many US players come from Robeats or Friday Night Funkin' or other similar 4K VSRGs. It's possible I could be wrong, so this is just speculation. The first thing that comes to mind for most people when they think of an OSU streamer or content creator, almost everyone will say BTMC or MREC. As for OSU Mania, there are notable YouTubers or streamers who are essentially top players, such as Suragi and Baby. But if you were to ask someone, is there a Mania content creator who doesn't exclusively post or stream gameplay? To make this easier, mainly interacting with the Mania community or events that are related to Mania would count. Well, the thing is, there isn't anyone that comes to mind at first. And now that I've dug deeper, there really isn't anyone that I can think of. Outside of YouTube, there's a handful of popular Mania TikToks. However, it's mostly made up of shit posts or 3-star gameplay. Not that it's inherently a bad thing, since it still brings traction to the game and connects players within the community regardless. As much as I want to talk more about this topic regarding Mania YouTubers, that's really it, unfortunately. From what I have learned, I wouldn't really say that OSU Mania is dead, but I wouldn't say it's truly living either. Sure, it's not like Tygo and Catch where it's completely forgotten, but what the game modes have in common is the larger scale of the OSU community is hardly giving attention to these modes compared to Standard. As for the progress towards OSU Laser, only Standard is the one that's being consistently worked on. And to be fair, it's understandable on the dev part. Mania can feel more dead or more alive depending on the country you're in, and especially the key mode you play in. From my personal experience, it's been more dead than ever, unfortunately. And as for the content creators, it's been empty for a long time ever since we lost Jacads and Silly Fangirl. But that's where I want to come in, even if I don't get significantly popular or anything. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe. It will truly help me out. Thanks for making it this far. I'll see you next time. It's possible I could be wrong, so this is just speculation. Fuck you too.